Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a serious and important topic: countries that have faced criticism for forcibly deporting Muslim refugees or migrants back to their home countries, even when those countries are unsafe or marked by persecution. It's deeply, deeply upsetting because we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet, we're talking about human beings fleeing unimaginable circumstances, only to be told, yeah, about that whole safe haven thing. Over the next few minutes, we're going to shine a light on this issue, looking at specific countries and the often heartbreaking stories of those caught in this system. Buckle up, folks, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's get started. Let's start with India, a country that, ironically, knows a thing or two about partition and displacement. India has been sending Rohingya Muslims fleeing violence and persecution in Myanmar right back to the very place they escaped. Now, India claims it's concerned about Rohingya refugees posing a security threat. The point is, legitimate security concerns or not, deporting people back to a situation where they face a very real risk of persecution, that's a big no-no under international law. This is about basic human rights. And India, with its vast history and cultural richness, should frankly know better. Let's move on. Next up, we travel to China, a country known for its Great Wall, its delicious dumplings, and its rich cultural heritage that spans thousands of years. But increasingly, it's also known for its less than stellar human rights record, which has drawn international criticism. We're talking, of course, about the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority group in the Xinjiang region. China has been accused of persecuting them with a level of, shall we say, enthusiasm that's frankly unsettling and deeply troubling. We're talking mass detention camps, forced labor, forced sterilization, and a systematic attempt to erase their culture and identity. These are not just isolated incidents, but a whole host of other horrors that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a dystopian novel. And what happens when Uyghurs try to escape this Orwellian nightmare? They face immense challenges and dangers. Well, China has been pressuring other countries to send them back, and the worst part, many countries comply. Many countries, terrified of upsetting the economic powerhouse that is China, have been all too willing to comply, turning a blind eye to the suffering. It's a classic case of out of sight, out of mind, except in this case, out of sight means potential torture and imprisonment. The international community's silence is deafening and the consequences are dire. It's enough to make you want to scream, to demand justice, and to call for an end to these atrocities. From China, we move on to Russia, a country that needs no introduction, mostly because it's constantly in the news these days. Whether it's political maneuvers, military actions, or social issues, Russia always seems to be at the center of global attention. Russia has a bit of a history when it comes to, let's say, firmly relocating people. This isn't a new phenomenon, it's been happening for decades, if not centuries, but lately they've been focusing their considerable relocation efforts on Muslim refugees and migrants, particularly those from Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Chechnya. These groups have been facing increasing pressure and scrutiny. Russia argues that these deportations are about cracking down on illegal immigration and, of course, combating terrorism. They claim it's a matter of national security and maintaining social order. The point is, while Russia has every right to manage its borders, it doesn't have the right to send people back to places where they face a genuine risk of harm. International laws and human rights agreements are clear on this matter. That's not border control, that's just cruelty with a side of borscht. Let's keep going. The world is watching and history will judge these actions. Chapter 4: Thailand, a tourist paradise with a dark secret. Let's take a quick trip to Southeast Asia, shall we? Thailand, a country known for its stunning beaches, delicious food, and unfortunately, its increasingly worrying treatment of refugees. We're talking about the Rohingya again, as well as Uyghur Muslims fleeing China. Thailand has been caught red-handed, or should I say red-passported, deporting these individuals back to the very countries they escaped. The thing is, Thailand relies heavily on tourism, and nothing says, "Come visit our beautiful country," like a side dish of human rights violations. It's time to ditch the deport first, ask questions later policy, and embrace a more humane approach. Chapter 5: Malaysia, straddling the line between hospitality and hostility. Next door to Thailand, we find Malaysia, another country grappling with the influx of Rohingya refugees. The Rohingya, fleeing persecution in Myanmar, often see Malaysia as a beacon of hope. Now, Malaysia has been relatively welcoming to Rohingya in the past, offering them a chance to rebuild their lives. But lately, well, let's just say the welcome mat has been pulled in a bit. The policies have become stricter and the borders less permeable. We've seen an increase in deportations, often under the guise of combating human trafficking. This has led to heightened tensions and protests, which, okay, is a noble goal. Human trafficking is a serious issue that needs addressing, except when it's used as an excuse to send vulnerable people back to dangerous situations. This puts many lives at risk. The situation with Uyghur Muslims is even more complicated. They face a different set of challenges. While not as frequent, Malaysia has also deported Uyghurs under pressure from China, sparking international condemnation and raising human rights concerns. Balancing economic interests with human rights is tough, but prioritizing the former over the latter is a slippery slope. It's a delicate act that requires careful consideration and empathy. Chapter 6: Turkey, a safe haven, with a few caveats. Let's talk about Turkey, the country that's been both praised and criticized for its stance on refugees. On the one hand, Turkey hosts the largest number of Syrian refugees in the world, which is commendable to say the least. But on the other hand, there have been credible allegations of Turkey deporting Uyghur Muslims back to China, albeit indirectly. Turkey denies these allegations, of course. But the evidence, much like that incriminating text message you accidentally sent to your boss, is pretty hard to ignore. Turkey needs to practice what it preaches when it comes to protecting refugees, regardless of their ethnicity or religion. Moving on to Saudi Arabia, a country known for its vast oil reserves, its strict interpretation of Islam, and its, shall we say, complicated relationship with human rights. Saudi Arabia has been deporting Yemeni refugees, many fleeing a brutal civil war that Saudi Arabia itself is heavily involved in. And it's not just Yemenis. Saudi Arabia has also been known to deport other Muslim migrants, including those from African countries, often sending them back to conflict zones or countries where they face persecution. Look, Saudi Arabia, we get it. You're a powerful country with your own set of challenges, but using vulnerable people as pawns in your geopolitical games? That's not a good look. Next, we travel to the United Arab Emirates, a country known for its towering skyscrapers, luxurious shopping malls, and, well, its less than stellar human rights record. The UAE has been criticized for deporting Muslim refugees and migrants back to countries where they face a very real risk of persecution. It's a bit like hosting a lavish dinner party, then kicking out your guests who don't meet your arbitrary standards of wealth or social status. And it's not just about appearances. The UAE's actions have real consequences for real people. People who have risked everything to escape violence, persecution, and often death. It's time for the UAE to stop hiding behind its glittering facade and start prioritizing human rights over profit margins. Now, let's talk about Bangladesh, a country that's often overlooked but deserves our attention. Bangladesh is home to the world's largest refugee camp, Cox's Bazar, which houses nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees who fled violence in Myanmar. But here's the thing, even with its limited resources, Bangladesh has faced criticism for pressuring Rohingya refugees to return to Myanmar, citing bilateral agreements. Look, Bangladesh, we get it. Hosting a massive refugee population is a huge burden. But pressuring vulnerable people to return to dangerous situations is not the answer. It's time for the international community to step up, provide more support, and ensure that Bangladesh doesn't have to shoulder this responsibility alone. Finally, we arrive in Pakistan, a country with a complex history and a long-standing relationship with Afghanistan. Pakistan has been hosting Afghan refugees for decades, many fleeing conflict and instability. However, in recent years, Pakistan has also been deporting Afghan refugees, including Muslims, back to Afghanistan. Look, Pakistan, we understand that hosting a large refugee population for an extended period is challenging, but sending people back to a country still grappling with violence and instability is not the solution. So there you have it, a glimpse into the complex and often heartbreaking reality of Muslim refugees facing deportation. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of this issue, to want to throw up our hands and say, what can we do? But here's the thing, we can do something. We can stay informed, we can raise awareness, and we can hold our own governments accountable. We can support organizations working tirelessly to provide aid and legal assistance to refugees. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content like this.